the Trump administration with their immigration issues as an advisor. And I've spoken to him, and he told me, and Danielle Jurinsky, who's a politician, this is her, Aurora is her district in Colorado. I've spoken to her. So you hear the stories, but like I said, it's not going to get reported. So, and it's yesterday's news, so it really doesn't matter anymore. But the current police chief, I believe he is doing a good job from what I understand. I see that they're cracking down.
So there's no more buildings that are run by those guys right now.
I don't know about that. I don't think that they're there because those are all scattered. So here's the crazy thing is Montana's got a big problem with TDA and cartels up there. In northeastern Montana, near the Canadian border, there were 3 individuals that were arrested, and it was drug-related offense. One of the 3 is from Aurora, Colorado. It was a Venezuelan from memory. So
small world. Yeah.
When the light gets shined, the cockroaches go in different directions. And I've spoken about this, and I'm saying, listen, I'm glad ICE has taken out 6 TDA members that were in Bozeman. There are 6 TDA members in Bozeman, in town in Montana. And those 3 in northeastern Montana. Great. I'm glad ICE is taking them out. But those aren't the 6 that I'm worried about. I'm worried about the 15, 20 others that are still there that no one knows about. There's a reason why those 6 moved there, okay? Because there's a network already built up. There's already a safe haven for them. So, and that's the criminal element where I was talking about earlier, that you need those 3 things. Until you get those 3 things, getting rid of 6 members, that's just a temporary fix. It's a good fix, but it's just temporary.
Yeah, what does their network look like in the United States? Like, what's their command structure?
I think that's yet to be determined. I think a lot of people, they have communications to Venezuela. There is definite, they're using social media. They're using WhatsApp groups. They're using Telegram. They're using Signal to communicate with one another. And we know that there is clear command and structure. So the kidnappings may be done in South America where the ransom is being collected in the United States. So they're communicating. Whether there's a concerted effort by all TDA members across the country, I don't think it's there. I think that you have a lot of pockets of TDA members, but they're all, they're
almost like subsidiaries then.
Correct.
Okay.
They're almost franchised.
Yeah.
So, and you have 1 or 2 members who are hardcore, members that were trained in Venezuela, and then they'll have like 30 members, who are 12, 13, 14-year-olds who are in that district, that region. Now, whether that one individual is getting orders, I think that's yet still being worked at. I mean, that's still being investigated by, the Bureau, HSI, and, determine the exact, elements of it, because it really is, a new, and I try and stay away from calling them a gang, especially now that President Trump has designated them a terrorist organization.
Oh, they are too.
Mm-hmm. I think it's 6 cartels, MS-13, and TDA have been designated terrorist organizations. So, which I like. It opens up.
That.
I do. I do like it because it opens up a totally new type of, abilities for the investigators that, again, I'm a little bit jealous them going, a whole branch, the national security branch, which was going after ISIS and Al-Qaeda, all those tools and all those, elements that they can use towards their investigation. Now, the guys that were working, they're working investigating TDA now is at their disposal. So they can use those tools to investigate TDA, MS-13, and things like that, and the cartels. And hopefully I see, a great promise with Mexico. I see that, they brought us 29, including Rafael Caro Quintero.
Yep, yeah.
They brought him, RCQ, and 28 other, cartel members that were wanted here in the United States. That's great. Now, whether we go kinetic and send troops into Mexico, I don't know. That's loaded.
That's the issue.
I think that we would be better off, hopefully we work with the Mexican authorities and, whether it be kind of like, hey, we have Green Berets or SEALs that are embedded in those units and providing them intelligence, providing them, hard intelligence like aircraft, drones. I think that would be a much better start, but just, going all out and just, sending SEAL Team 6 into an area where I think that's dangerous. I think that's a dangerous road we're going down.
Yeah, I just had Ed Calderon in here, and he was actually calling this years ago that this would probably happen. And since the second Trump administration came in, obviously that upped the chances, and then it did. But he seemed to have, like, what would you say, like mixed feelings on it, Alessi? Fair to say? Yeah. So when you declare something a terrorist organization, like, are you going to go at them with drone warfare like we do in the Middle East with certain ones of these organizations? And then you know how it was when any Al-Qaeda guys or ISIS cells were even slightly spotted in the United States, like it was like a full-blown, forget SWAT team, like fucking 12 levels above that. Think about how ingrained like 12, 13, and 14-year-olds who are just like running and doing pickpocketing in the United States are. It's like, how do you litigate that?
See, my question is, so you look at the definition of a terrorist group and I don't know the exact literal definition part of the U.S. Code is, but it is a group that's committing an act of violence on behalf of their ideology, religious, whatever their ideology is, and it's in an effort to create terror in the victims, right? So right now you're looking at it as, okay, are the cartels doing that? Or are they just a business selling drugs, which is killing our youth, our people? Yes. Are they doing that here in the United States, committing acts of violence? I don't know if I would go that far. Is TDA doing that? Again, I don't know. Do we have the capacity to go there? Absolutely. And that's the dangerous part is, like, if we go kinetic into Mexico, I think the cartels have such a structure that they could go in that they start conducting attacks as retaliation for Mexico, acts in Mexico. We're not seeing subways blowing up. We're not seeing car bombs that the cartel, like they used to do in Colombia when, what's his name? In Medellin cartel, Pablo Escobar was doing car bombs and blowing up planes. That's terrorism, right? That's straight up terrorism. We're not seeing that. And maybe I'm not seeing something. And again, I don't, I never worked the cartels, but I think that's a dangerous route we're going down. But that's the world we have. And I wouldn't be opposed. I'm not saying, oh, we can't, peace, no, we need to, these guys, respond to, they're going to treat us with violence. If we have to respond with violence, and take them out. I think that there's again a dangerous route because there could be a lot of innocent people that are they embed themselves in their communities. Whereas these guys don't wear uniforms. I mean, CJNG, they do wear uniforms. A lot of their elite units do wear uniforms. But let's say we attack a village, where we know is a large drug stop. I mean, how do we know who is cartel versus who is? Again,
weird,
right? It gets weird, and this is a conversation I'm totally open to having, saying, listen, convince me, and you're your other guest. Show me the different ways. Again, I wouldn't understand the different ways. So it's it's a different world. It's that we're dealing with now. And TDA, we know that they've conducted acts of terror in Chile. So about a year ago, I want to say it's about a year ago, there's a lieutenant in the Venezuelan army who fled Venezuela. He was opposed to the Maduro administration. He fled Venezuela, went to Chile, was hiding out there. TDA found him, kidnapped him, tortured him, and killed him. And,
so they're like real Maduro guys.
Right. That's what I'm saying is they are an arm of the Maduro administration, the TDA, the entire TDA branch. And that's why I think TDA is so dangerous, that with a flip of a switch, he could turn them on and become, initiate something. We know he's done that. Now, whether the TDA members in Chile directly received orders, I think that's what the investigation is still going on. But it got publicity in Chile. But it was, he was against Maduro. He ends up getting kidnapped by TDA and tortured and killed. Put one and one together. I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah.
So they are a terrorist organization. The MS-13 is a terrorist organization in other countries. El Salvador has designated them a terrorist organization. We've charged MS-13 members here in the United States with terrorist charges. And TDA is, they've done acts of terror in other countries. So, I mean, I'm glad that they've done this designation because, especially with the cartels. But now my next question is, what about the other cartels? There's tons of cartels out there,
yeah.
Colombian, Venezuelan.
Yep.
Where's the line? Should we just do all cartels?
Who's the clicks?
Was that?
Who's the clicks?
Who's going to get the clicks?
Yeah. And that's what it sounds like. They pick the ones that the average person hears about. They pick the main Mexican cartels. They pick MS-13. They pick Tren de Aragua.
Yes.
And it's like because they can get attention on that. Whereas like people, when you say Colombian cartel, they're like, oh yeah, fucking 40 years ago.
Yeah, nobody's talking right.
So,
there's a cartel in Venezuela, Cartel del Sol, Cartel of the Sun.
great name.
I know it is. It's very good.
Good branding.
Excellent. They're a big name cartel.
Yeah.
Why aren't they designated? Why aren't they a terrorist organization?
Did they work with Maduro?
I don't know. I'm assuming they do.
Because that was interesting. I did a YouTube live last year when the whole Venezuela thing came down, where there was like the election crisis and all that.
Yeah.
Which funny, you haven't heard anything since then.
Yeah.
But Maduro's obviously.
I want to say that the guy who won, who's now in Spain, the guy who ended up winning, I want to say that there's an active arrest warrant that he issued, the Maduro issued, and that they're hunting him, the winner.
Yeah.
And they've charged him with all kinds of crimes. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, though, he holds on to power, and the sanctions go through the roof as well from the United States. So it's a tough spot for the United States to be in because they're hostile to us and everything. But it seems like the timing of Tren de Aragua really popping off here lines up with that. I had Jorge Ventura in here. We recorded towards the end of July 2024, and then I put out the episode like 3 weeks later in August. But literally, he was sounding the alarm on Tren de Aragua.
Right.
I was like, oh, wow, this is the first I'm hearing about this. And then Aurora happened like 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's also right around the time the election thing happens. And it does feel like you keep making it sound like it's almost like his activated sleeper cell in a way. It certainly feels that way.
No, listen, the conversation I'm glad I talked to a lot of these guys, that the conversation of Tren de Aragua is being had, but it needs to continue being had and past the 15 minutes. This is a real threat. The Hispanic organized crime element is a real threat to this country. They're here, and we need to get investigators who speak Spanish to come on board.
Are they dropping bodies a lot? I mean, MS-13 I know is, like we've seen that, but do we see Tren de Aragua dropping bodies in different communities in America?
I haven't heard many of them. And I think they're going. See, here's why TDA is dangerous, because they've learned what doesn't work, doesn't work, and that's why they're MS-13 2.0. A lot of people have been calling them MS-13 2.0 because they've learned from the mistakes of the past. Trinitarios are smart and have learned from they stay under the radar. They don't cause they don't bring the attention upon themselves. They don't do a butchering and murdering and then what happens after that? Because the media gets the attention. And what happens after media gets attention? The police and law enforcement. So they're not going to do things that are going to rock the ship. They're going to create the waves. And that's why a great example is you don't have investigators poking. And again, I am not involved in Montana law enforcement. But in my opinion, there is not a emphasis being conducted in law enforcement in Montana into these groups because they don't know how to investigate these groups because they don't have the Hispanic, investigators up there. They've never had the reason to learn how cartels and Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and all these groups, their structure. They don't have the experienced agents, whether it be officers or FBI, because that's not what's been the normal up in Montana. Here in New Jersey, I know, 3 or 4 different FBI agents here in the state of New Jersey that are working that because there's a need for it here. There's never been a need for that up there. So now they're flourishing up there, the Hispanic organized crime elements, because they're doing the smart thing. They're staying under the radar. They're not creating the waves which will draw the attention. So they're getting, they're able to sell their narcotics. They're able to, but they're not doing the things like the butchering, the shootings, and things like that, because that'll bring the attention. I mean, look at the attention that Aurora got. As soon as that got into the media, boom, everybody paid attention to Aurora.
So like their businesses to be able to create income for themselves. You mentioned earlier, like they'll literally do things as low as having the 12, 13, 14-year-olds go pickpocket and stuff like that. You also mentioned that they'll run scams and be Trentarios, Trendaragua, where maybe they're, I'm filling in words here, maybe they're even using AI and stuff like that to do that kind of thing now. But from a narcotics perspective, how much of their business do you think is that, and what's the supply line look like there? Is it their own kind of cartel they're setting up, or are they getting supplied from the cartels in Mexico? How's that working?
So from what I've understood is they're working with Sinaloa and CJNG. There's I wouldn't say an alliance.
Can you say what CJNG is?
So CJNG is the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Cartel Jalisco de Nueva Generación, CJNG. So they are pretty much sort of the tip of the spear right now of cartels. They've grown an army. They literally have, uniformed members. They have armored vehicles. They've got the top-notch, armor of weapons, and
it's crazy.
It's crazy to look at this, and that's what's the most amazing thing is the lack of attention that we as a society here in the United States, I'm talking about DOJ and talking about media, everything, the whole 9 yards, the lack of attention that we've paid to South America is absolutely mind-boggling. And not just Hispanic organized crime, just the lack of attention. China has moved in to South America, Central America, and the Caribbean too.
Where in the Caribbean?
Where did I just read that there was they've moved into the Caribbean in certain islands?
Can we type in China moving into Caribbean? Oh, you already did it. Look at that.
Yeah, so the Belt and Road,
Caribbean becoming Chinese Lake.
That's it, Chinese Lake. Correct. That's the article. That's just a week ago.
All right, let me read this real fast for everyone out there. Go down, go down, go down. Okay, on December 2nd, 1823. Wow, we're going back. President James Monroe gave his seventh State of the Union address before Congress, using the occasion to advance what would later be known as the Monroe Doctrine. After a string of former Spanish colonies in Americas declared their independence, Monroe said the United States would oppose further predation in the region from the European empires to preserve the newly emancipated states. As American power exploded during the 19th and early 20th centuries, the Monroe Doctrine evolved and increasingly came to mean Washington's opposition to any potentially hostile foreign power establishing itself in the Americas. With this and a variety of more mercantile motives in mind, the U.S. made a series of military interventions in Latin America and the Caribbean. However, the past few decades have seen a dramatic increase in Chinese economic and diplomatic influence across the region, with one foreign policy expert telling Newsweek that Beijing wants to, quote, turn the Caribbean Sea into a Chinese lake, unquote. Let's go down. There are also concerns that cuts to the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, imposed by President Donald Trump's administration since it took over in January, could weaken American influence in the Caribbean. One regional expert described the move to Newsweek as a huge gift to Beijing. Newsweek reached out to Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the U.S. State Department for comment via email. Okay, so go ahead.
So what it is this is just a small. The Chinese have been moving into South America, and it's called the Pink Wave. So
the Pink Wave.
The Pink Wave it's been going on for like 20 years.
Very progressive.
So if you look at exactly. So if you look at a lot of the administrations in South America, a lot of them were very socialist leaning. And a lot of it is saying because of the Chinese influence. They were coming in, it's called the Belt and Road Project.
Yes, they do it through financial influence, soft power.
Exactly. And they influence and they support certain elected officials and get those people into position. It's a long game from China. They're playing the long game. They recently bought in Peru a seaport. I want to say it was $2 billion. They bought a port in Peru, where major ships can pull in, including Chinese warships. This goes along the lines.
Warships.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't understand either. Chinese warships?
Chinese warships, which in other words, which it has the capability, the size, this port, to have Chinese warships, pull up. That's it right there. That port right there. So they just bought that for like $2 billion. That's one of a number of different ports that they've bought along the Pacific Rim where if they wanted to, a Chinese ship could do a port visit. Also, if we ever got into a conflict, that could be used to replenish their ships. So the Chinese, and I think President Trump's move to, hey, we need to take Panama Canal back is absolutely the right move here. Because
You do.
Absolutely. Because if the Chinese take over the Panama Canal, we are in trouble. Because they have been slowly, we know they've moved into our networks, into a Verizon network. We know that they're hacking into our systems. We know that they've pre-positioned themselves. I look at it as this way: US and US interests are the frog. We're in a lake. They've been boiling the water around us.
That's right.
And we're not paying attention. We have not been paying attention, whether that's because it's the media. Either, again, I'm not saying one side, one media network or the other, but we're not paying attention to the South America, to the south of us. And the Chinese have been moving in and setting up their influence to, possibly an invasion of Taiwan. If they do an invasion of Taiwan in 27 or 28, I think those are the windows that I was told were, the windows where
Who told you that?
It's on multiple different, like they have, because they need to get their systems and get their shipping, the naval up to speed, and their personnel troops. They're amassing their all their tokens, their positions, if they wanted to do an invasion. I think it's 27 or 28. I think there
was going
were
to say
windows.
you'd have to wait till after Trump's out of there, because he also doesn't have to win another election at this point. And it's
Right.
like, if they go in, or God help them if they do that.
Right. So that's the thing, is they've got so many fingers into everything, into different positions, that the pink wave that they've been doing for 20 years, like I said, Chile was very socialist for a number of years. Now they've started to swing back. Argentina, obviously, with Milei, he's come back. So they've swung the Argentina back towards, towards to the right side, and Brazil has swung left and right.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a lot of these countries. Peru, socialist, went in socialist. A lot of these in 20 years ago, now they're starting to swing back. So there was recently a power failure in Chile. A power failure, I want to say it was like about 3 weeks ago. Took out 90% of the country, lost power and internet in the entire country.
90%.
90% of
Like
Chile.
the grids went down.
Everything
For
went.
how long?
I want to say it was I want to say 16, 18 hours.
Hold on, let's click that. Holy shit.
Yeah.
The 2025 Chile blackout was a major power outage that occurred on February 25th, 2025, affecting over 90% of the population of Chile and causing widespread disruptions to critical infrastructure, services, industries across the country. In response, President Gabriel Boric declared a state of emergency, imposed overnight curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. on the following day. All right, let's go down to, I want to see like damage, like what about what did the death toll look like from this? Go down.
I don't think there was a death toll.
That's interesting. So it was down for the grids were down for 16 hours, and we didn't see a major death toll.
I don't think so. Yeah, because I think internet. Here's the thing that made me go, wait a minute. There's something else here, because the internet went down too. The power went out. Listen, you lose power, at least you get internet. You still have internet. But
how do you have the internet without power?
They lost, well, if your cell phones.
Oh, right, because it's not okay. Yeah.
So you lost power and internet. So there was no community. My question is this. So you go back, China controls over 91% of the Chilean power grid.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
Chinese companies.
What do you mean they control it?
Chinese companies have purchased over the last 5 years. It went from like 5%, 20%, 80%. 91% of the power grid belongs to Chinese companies.
Somewhere Sean Ryan's going,
right? 91%, right? The Chilean government has historically in the last year pushed back against Chinese influence, saying was this a Chinese blackout? Did they send a message to Chile and say, hey, listen, don't fuck with us? Did they push back against Chile? Was it, and I wrote an article about this on my Substack, I said, was this a Chinese attack on Chile saying, stop pushing back against us? Or was this a test run for a much bigger event?
So there was I've cited this a lot before. I actually had this guy Andy Greenberg on the podcast a couple times, but great author and reporter over at Wired. He wrote a book called Sandworm back in like 2018, 2019 about specifically the GRU 77445 team that does all this hacking and stuff. And one of the things that really still to this day sticks out to me, especially in light of what's happened since, is that in 2015, that team was running test runs in Kyiv in Ukraine to shut down their power grids. And they were able to successfully do it, which I haven't heard a lot of reporting on that type of stuff within this war. I should look into that more. But the connotation there for me was they because they were able to do it, it's like, oh, they can.
Right.
And now you're telling me that China, who all due respect to Russia, is a way bigger problem because China's worth fucking 20 times what Russia is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're owning entire grids grids themselves in other sovereign nations not even close to them.
Right.
Where they could potentially literally hit a button. They don't even have to hack into it.
Right.
They own it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying
Scary.
And that's where it's when you have 91 company, and listen, these companies are Chinese companies, but we know who is giving them their marching orders. It's correct. So if Chilean government has gotten to the position where 91% is owned by the Chinese, what's that say about other countries? So that's happened over the last 20 years.
Right.
That water has been boiling, and now it's getting to a tipping point. What other? We see Chile. Is Peru like this? Is Colombia like this? And the fact of that they own these ports on the Pacific Rim, they're pre-positioning their chess pieces in advance of if there is a conflict, whether it be a cyber war or an actual conventional war. They're positioning their chips, all along the Pacific Rim so that they could control it in case they get into a conflict over in Taiwan. They could have a forward presence against any U.S. forces coming, to Taiwan's aid. So in it all, whether Chile was a test run to see, hey, can we shut down an infrastructure? Can we shut down internet and power? I don't know. I know that we haven't gotten a clear answer. I know that there's one story that came out. Oh, well, it was a substation in northern Chile that burned. How is one substation going to take out an entire country? So I've never heard, and again, I haven't read up on it in the last week to see whether the investigation has moved forward. Again, I don't believe having been on my side of the coin, I don't necessarily believe what is put out.
Oh, for sure.
All the time.
And it's like what's being fed through too, because
Correct.
China's soft power is incredibly well done. They not even to get too stereotypical here, but like they'll finance movies in Hollywood and stuff. And then fucking John Cena's got to apologize for offending China in fucking Mandarin. You know what I mean?
You remember when Red Dawn was remade? So the movie Red Dawn was an 80s movie. And they remade that, which was a horrible remake. But
I didn't even know they did that actually.
Oh, it's atrocious.
I was thinking of another one.
Atrocious remake with Liam Hemsworth. Yes, and it was a horrible remake. Well, when they filmed it, the opposing force, the OPFOR, was Chinese. They had Chinese flags. Oh. They went and they got such backlash before it was released. They went back and redid all the flags and removed them. Because Hollywood was like, whoa, we wouldn't be able to release this in China.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this was absolutely so. I've watched this one time and I couldn't stomach it. It was so bad. The original is awesome. The original Red Dawn is awesome. But this remake, they went back and redid all the flags to be there you go. That's the original. Yeah. Patrick Swayze, Charlie Sheen. That was awesome.
Yeah, so and this is where you potentially could piss a lot of people off here listening, because I, like a lot of people out there, was floored. And by the way, unless you leave that article too, I want to come back to that. That's a good find. You got it right there. But I was floored at the waste and the corruption that you hear about through USAID. Like, the stuff the guy Mike Benz has been going through. It's like
it's horrific.
It's
horrific.
It's horrific and
absolutely
bad,
horrific.
and it's clearly like some backdoor like for the worst parts of CIA to do stupid shit. That said, maybe not USAID, but some sort of fucking government organization like that. The one part, and this is where I pull it back to the middle, the one part where I go, all right, obviously not like this, not like we're doing it, but the one part where I'm like, something like that probably should exist.
Yes.
Not to buy fucking, trans dance shows in Venezuela, but maybe to get some actual real soft power to combat shit like this around the world. I could
Trump's
see that.
move to put whatever is USAID, whatever's like, put it in the State Department under Rubio, I think is the absolute best. Is awesome decision.
Interesting.
100%. I think it's you need absolutely what you're saying. There needs to be a focus. It doesn't mean an organization which is just literally, and that's literally what it was created was, and they're just putting out blank checks to all these horrible things that they do. Crazy things. I mean,
they
just
were
like
buying like $10,000 worth of stuff too.
Crazy.
Like, what does that even do?
Why are you supporting a play in Guatemala for trans people who are trans? And listen, you do you. You be you. I don't care. But why am I paying for that?
Right.
It's just absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be, because the Chinese have been doing this, the Belt and Road, there needs to be an element of that here because we can't just not do something. There has to be, but having it under the State Department in Rubio, I think that's absolutely the right move and say, listen, something's broken here. Okay. Clearly this is not working because it's, we're spending USAID money was just going out everywhere. Okay. Let's stop that. Let's rebuild it and let's make it more streamlined, smaller, faster, whatever, $6 million man type of thing. So let's just make it smarter and faster. And let's make sure it's directed towards things that help us, help this country and our interest overseas. USAID was complete disaster.
Yeah, the setup's just
it's horrible.
So it's nice that it's come out. I'm very happy that's all coming out. So maybe they can set it up like that. That could be cool.
Agreed.
But Alessi had pulled up this article. This is based on what you were talking about, but to a whole nother level. What does that title say? China blasts spineless plan to sell Panama Canal ports to BlackRock. God, it's like watching the Cowboys and the Giants play
I haven't seen
other.
this. Whoa. Listen,
I'm rooting for the asteroid.
Whoa! Come on.
BlackRock.
I have been a
China.
Giants fan since I was like
I'm
little
an
bit.
Eagles guy. Sorry.
No, listen. You know what? And here's the thing: is I was rooting. I did not want to see either team win the Super Bowl this year because I'm a Giants fan.
You were rooting for the asteroid.
No, I was rooting for Saquon.
Lamar?
I wanted Saquon.
Oh, okay. All right. So you were rooting for us.
I wanted Saquon to win the trophy. That's the ultimate when it came down to.
So you were rooting for us. Thank you.
No, on the record here, I am not supporting the Eagles. On the record, Giants, Yankees, Rangers.
Okay. Well, basically, for me, this would be like the Cowboys playing the Giants right here, where we're talking about China and BlackRock. But
yes.
All right, so China has sharply criticized a proposal to sell ports in the Panama Canal to American asset management giant BlackRock, attacking the deal as spineless, groveling, and a betrayal of the Chinese people. A commentary published by the state-owned Ta Kung Pao. You know what? I'm not going to make a joke right there because we
could just leave that one alone.
Newspaper and reposted on the website of China's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office on Thursday sent shares in CK Hutchinson, the Hong Kong-based owner of the ports, plummeting by more than 6% on Friday. Observers say it was as a sign that some investors are concerned the deal may not ultimately go through if Beijing objects. I'm not aware of any approval from Chinese regulators is required given CKH is retaining all of its existing Chinese ports. Of course, there is some chance the other influences may be brought to bear on the company that might put the deal at risk. The market seems to be pricing in some chance of this. So last week, a group of investors led by BlackRock said it would spend $22.8 billion, which, it's like a Tuesday for them, to buy the ports of Balboa and Cristobal on either end of the canal from CK Hutchinson. The consortium also agreed to buy CK Hutchinson's controlling interest in 43 other ports comprising 199 berths in 23 countries. They said the deal is agreement in principle. I think this is, because this is BlackRock, this is the USAID right here. This is the US using BlackRock as USAID. That's what this smells like to me.
Yeah. When was this article posted?
March 14th, 2025.
So yesterday.
Recently. Yeah.
2 days ago. Yeah, I hadn't seen this.
That's interesting.
But don't tell me, this is a Yeah, I think that. Listen, I think that if BlackRock is behind this, I think President Trump is, supporting it. For them to make the purchase.
So Trump's in bed with BlackRock.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm sure that President Trump is. Listen, this is more beneficial than actually putting troops on the ground in Panama, which I am also supportive of.
You're supportive of putting troops on the ground in Panama?
If it gets to that point, yes.
To stop China?
Yes. I would be supportive.
China doesn't have troops on the ground there, right? They just bought the ports. So they have people there, but they don't have, do they?
Listen, I don't know, but
I don't like that look.
Listen, I would not be surprised if there's Chinese units in the embassy right there. I would not be surprised. Element
How
members.
How many guys we talking?
How many do you need?
I don't know. This
SEAL
is
teams.
not like...
A SEAL Team 6. 4-man element is. They could take on, a huge guy. I mean, listen, I'll let Sean, speak to that because I don't know, but I'll tell you what, like I said, I would not be surprised. And again, I do not know this, but I would not be surprised to see if there was Chinese troops already in Panama, maybe stuck up in a hotel or something, ready to go to take over the port if needed. Like, in other words, if they saw the threat to the port. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying is, again, I would not be opposed to U.S. troops being deployed there. Now, I would hope that it would be in cooperation with the Panamanian government saying, hey, we're going to send the 10th Mountain. We're going to send the 10th Mountain there to help you guys out. You guys to help you guys out. No, we're going to do this. So you're going to cooperate, right? Of course you are. So I hope that would have to. But we cannot let the Panama Canal fall into the Chinese hands.
I don't disagree with that. That would be a huge. I mean, locationally, it's the crossroads.
Yeah. So
that would be a huge problem. It's just people get nervous about what that could blow up into.
Of course it would. I mean, let's put it this way. There's invading Greenland, invading Canada. I don't think we need to be doing that. I don't think we need to be invading Greenland or Canada, become the 51st and the 52nd states. But, Panama Canal, and I'm saying this, I don't want violence. I don't want encounters. I don't want there to be, contact between military units. That's the last thing I want. I don't want war. But looking at what China has done over the last 20 years with the Pink Lake, China Lake, and the Pink Wave, listen, they've already got their chips in our position.
Yeah.
So we need to protect ourselves. And I'm sure President Trump would rather let BlackRock buy these ports so that BlackRock controls them. Now, whether he is in bed with BlackRock, I don't know. I have no idea.
There's a lot of people sweating out there right now hearing you talk. They're like, wait a minute.
I couldn't even begin to speak I'm just basing, I'm seeing this article for the first time right now. So
that's interesting.
It's interesting because if you see a lot of other, a lot of companies, I mean, since the Trump administration, Apple invested $500 billion into the United States after the inauguration. Mm-hmm. Apple made a $500 billion investment into build, I assume, would be factories and, Apple assets here in the United States.
That's good,
so if you had asked me a year ago, would Apple be, investing into the United States and supporting, being at the inauguration, you had Tim Cook and Zuckerberg. And,
they were all
right.
There.
They were all there. So they clearly are.
They flipped the switch real fast.
So
what's that look?
Hey, listen.
What's that look?
They know the winning team. They see the winning team and they're like, hey, this is good for business. Maybe BlackRock, they see what's good for business, and BlackRock has an opportunity to control these ports.
Yeah.
Hey.
You're saying a lot of quiet parts out loud today. I appreciate that about you. That's good. But did you remember the case, because you kind of mentioned it, where when you were talking about all this China investment, how they're doing some here too, obviously. Like we talked about the farmland and stuff before. That's weird. I want to get to them with the border as well, because that's in your territory. But you remember the Huawei thing too? Where they were like buying up the cell towers and stuff?
Yeah.
Did you have any look through on any of those cases?
No.
Yeah, that's totally out of your
Listen,
purview,
I understand.
right?
All this Chinese thing. All right, I speak from a position of because I am, by heritage South American. So I know about the Pink Wave. I've been studying it. I've been reading about it. And I know these things. Did I do any criminal investigations? No, I didn't do anything. That wasn't my wheelhouse. There are other agents who did that. I'm sure there's departments in counterintelligence, and they did this work. So, and I'm sure the agency was all over this. But we know that it's publicly known that that the Chinese hackers hacked into the Verizon networks. They've hacked into our Verizon networks. They've gone into the systems, and they've gone into our. I don't know how deep it went, but they were in our cell phones. So
they were in all of our cell phones?
Again, this is just based on the.
I'm on AT&T. Joke's on you guys, but still.
I know they were in multiple networks, and I think there was a discussion that they were also inside the system that's utilized to conduct wiretaps in the United States. Law enforcement were able, the systems we've built to conduct wiretaps. And that was, again, based on what I read in the media, but the Chinese were inside the telephone systems. Listen, listen, the amount of hacks that are being done out there, that are, groups like Scattered Spider, which is the #1 cyber hacking team, elements here in the United States, they hacked in Las Vegas. The Scattered Spider team allegedly attacked MGM Grand, the MGM, and took them. They lost after it took them the MGM to counteract the attack. They lost $150 million. So yeah, there you go, Scattered Spider, and they're elite. I mean, these are the guys. Can you
hit that Wikipedia? Let's see what the CIA has to say about this. All right, Scattered Spider, also referred to as UNC 3944, is a hacking group mostly made up of teen and young adults, believed to be primarily made up of operators based in the United States and the United Kingdom. The group gained notoriety for their involvement in the hacking and extortion of Caesars Entertainment and MGM Resorts. Scattered Spiders has also targeted Visa, PNC Financial, Transamerica, New York Life, Synchrony Financial, and Truist Bank and Twilio. Most recently, members of Scattered Spider have been connected to hacks against Snowflake customers. Okay.
Never heard that. So they attacked Caesars and MGM resorts at the same time. Caesars, and they inserted a malware into the system. And Caesars, and they asked them, they said $15 million and we'll release your system. Caesar said, here you go. They paid him the $15 million ransom. MGM said no. They ended up losing $150 million. Yeah.
You got to make that investment early, man.
Right. So, and it's crazy how they got in. And what they did was they studied. So you never attack, a cyber attack is never attacking directly at it's always an end around. They went after, they targeted an individual that works at MGM. They studied that person. They found out everything they knew about the person. And eventually when they were ready to strike, what they did is they called IT support at MGM and said, hey, this is whatever. My name is Anthony. How you doing? I just lost my password. Can you reset it, please? Sure. What's your dog's name? What's your month? Things that they had already identified. And this was a U.S. American individual pretending to me. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Here's your reset password. Just enter this. He entered it. Boom. They were in. He reset the password for this employee. Was able to enter, and they inserted the malware. And that's how they got in. Simple. That simple. There's another scam one of my clients told me about, and this was, it wasn't a scam. It was a robbery. So, and it was social engineering. So he was on a plane. He was landing in Miami, got off the plane. And you know how when you're logging in, it says, please enter this 6-digit code that we'll send to your email. And he got a list, boom, 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 boom. Google code, Facebook code, boom, 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 multiple different ones. And each one of them, so he thought, he's like, I'm being attacked. One of them was for his crypto bank. But multiple other Google this, Facebook that, but nothing else happened. So it looked like he was like, okay, someone's attacking me, but they weren't able to get in any of the systems. The crypto company called him and said, hey, sir, we see some suspicious activity. Is this you? And based upon what had just happened to him, he goes, yeah, I saw the same thing. He's like, okay, well, let's lock it down. Let's put 2-person let's answer these questions. And it was the hackers. He lost $800,000 in crypto in one shot. He didn't know.
Yeah, so
It was social engineering. They had set him up. You know, they had left hook, left hook, left hook, left hook, and all of a sudden he just came in with a right hook, and they took him for $800,000. So that's, for me, it was a robbery. It wasn't a scam. You know, they targeted him. So these guys know what they're doing, and I mean, that's not the only one I've heard of. So, yeah, these guys are good. These guys are very good, and they've teamed up supposedly with I don't know if it was the Vegas, but supposedly they teamed up with Black Hat, which is a Russian hacking unit. So the Scattered Spiders, how I understood it, were all young guys. They're all young American, know how to get into the system. Black Hat are Russian. It's a Russian hacking unit who have the knowledge of how to hack a system, of like how to make how to conduct an attack. Right. So the experience of the young kids in the United States and Black Hat and Russian, the working together, I mean, some of the, the most elitist groups out there, they're joining forces now.
That's crazy.
I know. Exactly. So, but I think MGM lost about 150 million that day.
And now with AI, we were talking off camera before we got started. Like, there's so many. It's getting so good that you could be vulnerable at any one moment because you could What was the one story you told me? The guy thought he was like going into a meeting. It was all real people, but they were all AI.
So it was in I believe in Hong Kong, where an individual who was in the finance unit element for a company, he gets called into a meeting. And he sits down and he's in front of a television, and the board there is the finance board, and is a board of members there, and they tell him, they're like, okay, we need you to transfer $25 million. He's like, okay, because you're telling me you're the CFO, you're the boss. Well, it turns out he was talking to a room full of AI.
Oh my God.
25 million. And that's not the only story I've heard of AI scams where they're just, you're talking to, and now with the type of voice, all AI systems that are out there, it takes 2 to 3 seconds, I believe it is, on like social media. All they do, I mean, this conversation right now, it's going to be posted like the other podcasts I've did. So somebody could take my voice and, pretend to be me, and my mom would be convinced.
Yeah, it's getting really scary.
Yeah.
How much better it's getting every single day. Like when it first started, it's like, all right, if you really look, you can tell. Now, some of it you really got to be looking at. You might not be able to tell.
What's tough for law enforcement these days, and I was talking to your producer, before the cameras went on, is that the bureaucracy and the difficultness to purchase a system for law enforcement purposes. Okay, so you in the private industry creates the next advanced computer to hack a system like this. In law enforcement, that's the next advanced computer. You're ahead of me. You're already ahead of me. You get the new one, and I want to get that. But to be able to get that system, so we could counter battle each other, and we could fight the hack, I have to go through systems and tests and this. Yeah. By the time I have that computer, you've already moved on to the next one.
That's right.
So I'm already a step behind you. So that's the hurdles that law enforcement has to go over, is that they're constantly chasing the criminals who are ahead of the game and have the next technology, whereas law enforcement has to go through, hey, we got to test it, how much we got to pay for it, what are the bids. It's just
that world moves so fast, you can't do it. You can't do it like that.
No, I mean, hell, you just as a consumer now these days, you buy a car, you buy a laptop, in a week from now it's already outdated. It's obsolete.
Right. Yeah,
and it's already moved on. So they're already moving on. AI's growth is, exponential.
Oh, it's insane.
I mean, it's insane. It's growing upon itself. And some of the stuff you see online, and we know that there was I think it was Belarus. There was an election that was controlled, or I want to say it was in Belarus. I think it was the country. There was an election, and about 2 days before the election, an audio tape was released where you supposedly hear the individual, the politician, his voice saying, "Oh yeah, no, I've rigged previous elections," and I'm paraphrasing here. Yeah. I've rigged previous elections. Don't worry about it. This will be fine. 2 days later, he ends up losing the election.
I also wonder if it's going to get so rampant that no one's going to believe anything they do here that's real. Like let's say someone had really said something like that, and people just go, it's just AI.
Correct.
It works both ways. That's
Correct.
Crazy.
100%. Could be the defense, and that may be the actual person to saying, having said that, but their defense could be, no, that's fake. Even if it's caught on video.
Right.
You're like, no, that's not me.
It's AI.
That's AI.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong. So it absolutely goes both ways.
Did you guys at FBI, because again, you didn't leave there that long ago, did you do any, maybe not simulations, but did you guys have like imagination teams? I'm making up a term there, but here's what I mean by that. Teams whose job it was their task was to try to determine what future warfare could look like with hypothetical enemies, and if that happened, not only what it would look like, but what FBI's role might be in that type of scenario?
Well, let's put it this way. I don't know for a fact but if there wasn't that type of office or that team, I'd be very upset. If there wasn't a group of
if there
was not.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know for a fact, because that was my pipeline was gangs. And that's all.
You didn't get right into that part of the deep state.
Nope.
Yeah.
I didn't need to know. I don't need to know. And I was in the gang world, and that's all I need to know. And listen, I had top secret SCI clearance, but there was never my world.
Your world didn't cross with that.
Didn't cross with that.
But your world, like.
But I'd be shocked and very disappointed if there wasn't an office of analysts. I don't think the agents, maybe one agent that would be involved in that, but I'd be shocked and surprised if there wasn't a group of people that are thinking exactly that.
For sure.
Going, okay, let's think outside the box. I mean, and that was the failure of 9/11, is that they didn't think outside the box.
Well, also they didn't communicate. And
communication,
with CIA,
that goes to thinking outside the box. Yeah. Let's not think outside the box. As an investigative period, yeah, that was a failure. But as to not think outside the box, and so, okay, let's think about what could the cartels launch an attack? How would they do that? But listen, they do it in the military. We know that they do it in the military. Hey, if we want to invade Taiwan, if we wanted to invade China, I'm sure there are tons of different scenarios. If we get attacked by cyber, what is going to be our response? If there's an attack from satellite, space attacks, because I believe some countries have weapons up in space.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm sure there is. I mean, I'd be ignorant not to think that that's probable up there. But to think exactly, different scenarios and how we're going to respond. I would hope that there's an office in the FBI doing that.
Okay. Well, within your gang investigations, because you brought up the China thing, that's why my tentacles were going off a little bit. We'll get to the cartels in a minute, but did you see Chinese involvement in any of these gangs, or not even involvement, but like peripheral type actions that might line up?
Not in the gangs, but based on what I've read, when I read is, the Chinese influence into, methamphetamines and fentanyl distribution. Yeah, they work with. From what I understand, they're working with the cartels is because So I can't say for certain. I mean, I never saw it in the gang world.
Yeah.
I never saw it in the gang world.
I mean, it's a reverse opium war. And Ed was talking a lot about that too off camera, and I think on camera as well at Calderon. And we've had some all the cartel people we've had in talk about that, and it's like it's so crazy how accessible they've made it. I've told this story before on the podcast, but this dude Ben Westhoff, who I've been talking with, we'll get him in here at some point. He wrote this book called Fentanyl Inc., maybe like 6-7 years ago, something like that. And he had done a Joe Rogan podcast back in the day that really opened my eyes, where he explained how he even fell into this story. Mm-hmm. So he was like a culture reporter, wrote about music, movies and stuff like that. And he's doing some random story in the music industry. And somewhere in the story, like he's interviewing some guy, and the guy mentions an offhand comment about fentanyl. And he had heard of it, but he started asking the guy more, and they got really curious because he was like, whoa, got surprised. And so ends up going down this rabbit hole, writing this book called Fentanyl Inc. While he's writing the book, just a regular author, did something pretty savage. He's like, well, fuck it. I'll go to China. Flies to China. He's like, let's see how easily I could get this. And he gets into a lab, and they're like, all right, so do you want the deluxe special or the supreme? And he's like, holy shit. And so that's just a regular citizen going over there to do it. But these guys, you mentioned all the resources they're putting into South America and everything.
Well, I mean, you got this port in Peru. They're controlling this port right now. You could literally have a ship full of fentanyl, just drive right up to Peru and say, all right, boys, Here we go. We got carrot. You know, we got by the case, by the tonnage. What do you want? What do you and that's distribution straight up in the vein into the United States, from Peru to Central America into Mexico. I mean, it's a port that they control now, which, like I said, theoretically is the docks are big enough to, you know, have Chinese warships.
Yeah.
I mean,
Crazy.
1-1.
What's your take on, within your career, dealing with these groups and how they were able to get here? Like, was it strictly due to a border problem, or was it deeper than that?
Oh, TDA is 100% border problem.
Okay.
100%.
So they just ripped through the border.
This would not, TDA problem we have today, I 100% put it on Biden's administration because of the open border policy of how many millions came across during his 4 years. TDA came to creation, I think it was in 2018 is when they were created, but they really, but they started cutting their teeth in Chile and South America and Peru, but they really didn't start coming to the United States until 23 at the earliest. When I went to that meeting in South America, where they were talking about that they were a little bit into Texas and South Florida, okay, and that was in spring of 23. 1 year later, we're talking about this spread across this country. What is it, 16, 19 different states there's TDA presence? That doesn't happen normally. I've seen, you know, firsthand how a gang, how a transnational criminal organization, you know, expands their presence. If we had, what would you call it? Not obviously not today where there's zero, you know, border crossings, but if you say pre-Biden, pre-2020, during the Trump administration or Bush or Obama or anything, where there was thousands, there was people coming across, even that, there never would have been the amount of TDA members that there are now. That happened in the 4 years during the Biden administration, 100%. That happened not naturally. It just, it spread so quickly because they were able to come across the border. Now, you understand is, okay, there are millions of people that came across the border.
Yes.
Right.
That we know of, that kind of know of.
Correct. It was an estimate. Right. Being very clear. 90% of those people that came across the border are good people.
For sure.
Just looking for a better opportunity to work here. Now, they committed a crime entering the country. There's no doubt about that. They illegally, emigrated into the United States.
I know what you're saying.
Right. But for me, it's the 10%. It's the 10% of 15 million.
It's called a Trojan horse.
Right. So you have not just Hispanic or not TDA, not just Cartel. You have Chinese, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas. They all came in with a wide open door. So you have that element. And that's what, Holman is going after. And I fully applaud them. And they're working their butts off. And I've talked to a couple of guys who they're like, yeah, we're working 6 days a week, constantly. But they're never going to, it's just so much.
You can't swat every fly.
They're not going to get them. I mean, they're going to try and get them, but we just don't have the manpower to keep up with that speed. So, I've heard stories that, that there's Eric Prince has put in for a contract, for $25 billion
yes, I saw that.
to start up, the whole private industry, a la
the we gonna find you industry.
Right, exactly. So there's got to be a solution here. There's got to be a solution. But that element, that's that 10% that came in during the 4 years. That's how TDA grew so fast.
What at FBI, you guys are working cases, whether it be you or other agents working different types of things that somehow, some way touch the border or touch things that happen as it relates to the border. What were you guys saying and thinking while this just got so out of control?
Insane. Absolutely insane. I would talk to deportation officers that were on the border. They would talk to them, and I knew them, and they would tell me that they were like, yeah, we just, people would just come up, go, I'm claiming asylum. It's not even like the traditional.
Sounds good. Go ahead, right there.
And that's pretty much what it is. They take a note. They'd be like, here's, where are you going to go? I'm going to go to Elizabeth, New Jersey. Okay. All right. You're going to Elizabeth, New Jersey. Name, fingerprint. I think they took one fingerprint and they just said, okay, here's a court date report in 9 years.
In 9 years?
Oh, yeah. An OTA, which is an order to appear. There's so much backlog. You'd be looking at 6 to 9 years And that person was expected to show up in court, whatever it was, 9 years from now.
Well, all right, so let's bring this back around on something. This is something Ed was talking about. Now you've declared cartel organizations terrorist organizations.
Yeah.
Can any Mexican now claim asylum?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I wouldn't know the State Department rules, but yeah, if somebody wanted to come across and they said, listen, if they have, so a lot of El Salvadorians would come to this country saying, I'm being pursued by MS-13 and I fear for my safety. And so to be able to claim asylum, I believe someone had to display to the court that their life was in danger being in that original country. So whether, I think rules were different for like Cubans and in other countries and Venezuelans where it's a hostile government and that people fear for their lives. And I think it's the same thing for like MS-13. A lot of El Salvadorians would come to this country going, I fear for my life.
Yeah.
If I get sent back, I would die.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.